Okay, this is section 9 of Virtue Ethics, the Anthology task Nicomachean Ethics in A-level, paper 2 Ethics. We'll read it and we'll analyze it. So he says, we must take as a sign of states of character the pleasure or pain that supervenes upon acts. For the man who abstains from bodily pleasures and delights in this very fact is temperate, while the man who is annoyed at it is self-indulgent. And he who stands his ground against things that are terrible and delights in this, or at least is not pained, is brave, while the man who is pained is a coward. These are really quite judgmental words, aren't they, by Aristotle. How dare he call some people cowards and some people brave? Aren't we all brave? Interesting. How does Aristotle, in his judgmental way, think you can judge someone? Let's look at this. What does he say? He says, we must take as a sign of character the pleasure or pain that supervenes upon acts. What does that mean? He says you can take and tell as a sign of what a person is like, their character, what pleases or pains them, says Aristotle. So if they are pleased or pained by good things, then they're a good person. Pained easily by things that aren't so bad, then they're a snowflake or something, Aristotle would say. Now this word, what does he mean by this little word here, which is quite difficult? Supervenes. That supervenes upon act. It's worth just pausing a second and doing a little bit of nota bene. What does this word mean? It's a word in philosophy. Once you talk about things supervening upon other things, it's a kind of flag to a deeper aspect of Aristotle's philosophy. Supervenience refers to a relation between sets of properties, two things, as it were, or sets of facts. This set of facts is co-substantial with this set of facts. They interact, they are reliant on each other. And Aristotle, in his theory of the soul, thinks the soul is what supervenes on the body. It's what animates the body, but at the same time, depending on at least certain readings of Aristotle, he thinks the soul is something that just emerges as a property of the body and will not survive its death. Remember, he's rejected his teacher Plato's theory of the soul. Now, this is a hotly debated area of philosophy, emergentism, and Aristotle is full of it. And biology, wow. In 2016, there was an incredible meeting of the British Royal Society of Science in which emergent theories of evolution were debated because the old Darwinian theory of evolution, the neo-Darwinian synthesis, wasn't working and hasn't been working for a long time. So it's a deep word with lots of very contemporary debate around it, this word supervenience. So we'll ask another question. What are the giveaways of a person who is deficient in his two virtues he's discussing here, courage and temperance? Well, he contrasts two types of people, the virtuous and the vicious, the continent and the incontinent. So the sort of moderately virtuous and the moderately vicious. And he thinks the person who whines and complains about something, they're not moderate in pleasure. Think about Tough Mudder, stop whining is the sort of sign that you see when you do a Tough Mudder. It's about character building. Maybe they should have that on the PE department wall. Stop whining, run another lap or something. So it's talking about the man, Which type of man? One of the four types of men he thinks you can. The man who abstains is the virtuous man. The man who can abstain from bodily pleasures and delights in the fact he is temperate. While the man, okay, we've got the virtuous man and the vicious man, or perhaps the continent and the incontinent man, who's annoyed is, think about people who are easily annoyed, that are fragile, would be the way it would be described, because they prefer instant gratification, perhaps long-term gratification. Lots of psychology tests have been done on that, haven't they? Delayed gratification, a little bit of chocolate now, or the whole bar of chocolate later. So the virtuous person is the person who can wait for the whole bar of chocolate. The self-indulgent, that's a cracking word, who stands his ground. Who's annoyed is self-indulgent. Again, in contrast, the man who stands his ground, who doesn't give up on his diet, who abstains from bodily pleasures, who stands his ground against terrible things. So that's courage. And delights, that's the temptations of food, say. In this, or at least is not pained, is brave. So there's your bravery, courage. But the man who's pained is a coward. This is rough language by him. So how can we be identified? He says, you can judge a person, you can identify a virtuous from a vicious person by observing, do they have vices of excess or deficiency? Through measuring the pleasure and pain they enjoy or they try and avoid. Now, he does say too much pain and too much pleasure is not right. So we should experience a mixture of both, a life of just pain or a life of just pleasure. A moderate life is the way to go. Worth asking and thinking an AO2 kind of question here. Explain the difference between this and the principle of utility. Remember, utilitarian ethics is based on psychological hedonism. Well, the principle of utility is seen as a master with pain. Pleasure is seen as a master along with the sovereign master, the two sovereign masters of pleasure and pain. Psychological hedonism measures the rightness and wrongness for Bentham as a sum of pleasure, or in Mill, the idea of the higher pleasures. Now, in virtue ethics, pleasure in a sense is irrelevant. Pleasure is not good nor bad. It's the agent. What the agent does is everything. What is good is not consequentially what brings the greatest pleasure or least pain, but the good is defined by what a virtuous individual does because they've practiced and developed virtuous traits, whatever they are. So that's section 9. And we might remember some key words from here. This phrase supervenes as key vocabulary. We've had the word character, moreover, mentioned. What is character? It's the mental and moral qualities distinctive to an individual. Section 9.